Story 1. Vanessa Hudgens never imagined that one night would change the way she looked at the world forever. It happened in a quiet hotel room, just another stay in another city. But something was off. The air felt heavier, the silence too deep, like the walls were holding their breath. Exhausted, she dropped her bag on the bed, checking the time. 2:30 a.m. Outside, the city buzzed with distant life, but inside there was nothing but eerie stillness. Then a sound. Soft at first, faint. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, just beyond her door. She froze, listening. Maybe it was another guest walking down the hallway, but then they stopped. Right outside her room. Seconds dragged. Nothing. Just silence. She exhaled, shaking her head. Maybe she was overthinking, but as she turned away, thud. A sharp noise from inside her room. Her breath caught. Slowly she turned. Her suitcase, which had been closed, was now half open, clothes spilling onto the floor. She hadn't touched it. A cold sensation crawled up her spine. She swallowed hard, moving closer, her fingers trembling as she reached for the suitcase. Then she saw it. A reflection in the mirror? A dark, shadowy figure standing right behind her. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She spun around. Nothing was there. A chill wrapped around her. The air suddenly thick, charged with something unseen. She grabbed her phone, turning on the flashlight, scanning the room. Empty, but something still felt wrong. Then, soft, barely audible, a whisper. "Help me." Her blood turned to ice. The voice was right there, near her ear. She stumbled back, her breath shallow. It had to be her imagination. It had to be. The closet door creaked, just slightly. Her body stiffened. She hadn't touched it. She stared, unblinking, heart hammering. The door moved again, inching open. The air inside was darker than the rest of the room. Unnaturally so. She wanted to run, wanted to scream, but her body refused to move. Her phone flickered, the flashlight glitching. Panic set in. She tried to convince herself it was a bad dream, that if she just closed her eyes it would be gone. Then, another whisper. Closer. This time, directly in her ear. "You can hear me. Can't you?" A choked gasp left her lips. She bolted for the lamp, gripping it like a weapon, ready to fight whatever was in that room with her. But when she looked back at the closet, the door was wide open, and the darkness inside felt alive. The air grew colder, the presence stronger, and then just like that, everything stopped. No whispers, no movement, just silence. Morning came like a lifeline. Vanessa sat in the hotel lobby, gripping her coffee, hands still shaking. She told her friends about it, expecting laughter, but instead one of them paled. "That hotel," they said, voice uneasy. "It's rumored to be haunted." Vanessa never got an answer for what she encountered that night, but deep down she knew she was never alone in that room. Story 2. The air was heavy, thick, like something unseen lingered in the shadows. Salma Hayek had always been drawn to the mysterious, but she never expected to live it. It started in an old, lavish home she once lived in, a place that felt too grand to be empty. At night, the silence was never truly silent. There were whispers, soft, unintelligible, floating through the corridors. She brushed them off at first. Maybe the wind, maybe her imagination. But then, the footsteps began. Click, click, click. Slow, deliberate, pacing outside her bedroom. Salma wasn't alone in the house, but the maids, they refused to go upstairs after dark. They muttered things about a presence, a shadow that moved without a body. One of them even quit, her hands shaking, eyes darting to something unseen behind Salma's shoulder. And then the lights, flickering, dancing, before switching off completely. She felt it then, a presence, standing too close, breathing, watching. Salma turned, heart hammering, only to find emptiness staring back. But the air was colder now, pressing against her skin like an unwelcome touch. She told herself it was nothing, until the piano played. 3 notes, software deliberate. She didn't move. Couldn't. Her breath caught in her throat as the keys pressed down again. She wasn't imagining this. She was being haunted. Desperate for answers, she called in a healer, a woman wise in the ways of unseen forces. The moment she stepped inside, she froze. "There is something here," she whispered. "A restless spirit, a woman, angry." The healer performed a ritual, burning herbs, chanting prayers. The house grew thick with smoke. The air electric with something unseen fighting to stay. And then Silence. A final, eerie hush that sent chills through Salma's bones. The spirit was gone. The house was hers again, but to this day, Salma wonders, was it ever truly alone?
Story 3.
Jennifer Tilly always had a thing for the supernatural. She played with Ouija boards as a kid, told ghost stories at sleepovers, but those were just games. This question marked this was real. It started the night she moved into her new home, a grand vintage house, the kind that held secrets in its walls. She loved the charm, the history, until she realized she wasn't alone. At first it was subtle, a whisper, faint, like someone murmuring just out of reach. She'd pause, listening. Nothing. Then, the doors. They didn't just creak, they opened, by themselves. Late at night, she'd hear them click, swing wide, as if welcoming something inside. Jennifer laughed it off. She was an actress. Imagination came with the job. But the more she ignored it, the worse it got. One night, she woke up. Her room was freezing, the air thick, heavy. She turned over, half asleep, until she saw it. A shadow, standing in the corner of her bedroom. Still. Watching. Her breath hitched. Every hair on her body stood on end. She wanted to scream, move, run. Anything, but she was frozen. Completely paralyzed. The shadow took a step. The floor creaked beneath it. And then, it was gone. Vanished. She stayed awake until morning, convincing herself it was sleep paralysis, a trick of her mind. But the next day, something happened that she couldn't explain. She was sitting in her living room, flipping through a script. The house was quiet. Too quiet. And then, a voice, clear, close, right behind her ear. "Hello." Jennifer jumped, spun around. Nobody, nothing. She wasn't crazy. She knew what she heard. That night, she invited friends over. Safety in numbers, right? She didn't tell them about the voice, the shadow, just played it cool. They drank, laughed, until someone gasped. "Jennifer," her friend whispered. "Your chair?" She looked down. It was moving. Not jerking or wobbling, sliding, slowly across the floor. Jennifer shot up. "Did you see that?" Everyone did. They left that night. And Jennifer? She called in a medium. The moment the woman walked in, she frowned. Her gaze darted to the corner of the room. "There's a spirit here," she said. "It likes you." Jennifer swallowed hard. "Is it dangerous?" The medium didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the bedroom, the very spot Jennifer saw the shadow. She closed her eyes, whispered something under her breath, and then she nodded. "It's gone now." Jennifer didn't ask questions she didn't want to know. She slept peacefully that night, but sometimes, in the silence, she still hears it. That voice, that whisper. "Hello?"
Story 4.
Megan Fox had always been drawn to the unknown. Mysteries, conspiracies, and the supernatural fascinated her. But she never expected to experience something herself. Something she couldn't explain. Something that left her questioning reality. It happened in Mexico. She had checked into a luxurious hotel, one that carried an air of old-world charm. The kind of place where the walls seemed to whisper stories of the past. She was there with a friend, excited for a much-needed break. The night was calm, the air thick with the scent of the ocean. But inside her room, something felt off. At first, it was small things. A strange static in the air, an unsettling feeling like she was being watched. She tried to ignore it, blaming it on her imagination. But then something happened that made her blood run cold. She and her friend had ordered room service. A lavish spread of food was delivered, neatly arranged on a tray. They set it down on the small table in their suite, the air filled with the comforting aroma of freshly cooked dishes. Then, for just a moment, they turned away, no more than a few seconds. But when they looked back, the food was gone. Not disturbed, not partially eaten, completely gone. Every plate was empty, as if someone or something had devoured it in an instant. A shiver ran down Megan's spine. They hadn't heard a sound. No footsteps, no movement, nothing. Just an eerie silence filling the room. She and her friend exchanged nervous glances. They weren't alone. Trying to shake off the unease, they decided to call the front desk. Maybe someone had entered without them noticing. But no, the hotel staff assured them that no one had come in or out. There were no extra keycard scans, no security footage of intruders. It was impossible. The night stretched on, the air growing heavier, suffocating. Megan couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. Every flicker of light, every creak of the wooden floor sent a jolt of fear through her. Then came the whispers, faint, almost imperceptible, like distant voices carried by the wind. They weren't coming from outside, they were inside the room. Megan held her breath, her heart pounding. She wasn't the type to scare easily, but this was different. Sleep became impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt a presence near her, something unseen, something hungry. The hours dragged by until finally the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains. And just like that, the atmosphere changed. The heaviness lifted, the whispers stopped. By morning, it was as if nothing had happened. The hotel staff had no explanation, no rational answer. But Megan knew what she had felt, what she had experienced. There was something in that room, something that had made its presence known in the most disturbing way possible. She left that hotel with more questions than answers. Was it a spirit, a trick of the mind? Or had she, for one terrifying night, stepped into a realm beyond human understanding? She may never know, but one thing was certain, she would never forget. Story 5. Lucy Liu never believed in ghosts until she met one. It was a quiet evening in her Los Angeles apartment, the kind of night that makes the world feel slower, heavier. The city lights flickered outside, but inside her bedroom, everything was still. Too still. She had been exhausted, drained from long hours on set, and decided to take a nap. The moment she closed her eyes, a strange sensation washed over her. Not sleep, not wakefulness. Something in between, a paralysis. She couldn't move, couldn't even blink, but she could feel everything. And then she wasn't alone. A presence filled the room. She couldn't see it, but she knew it was there. The air thickened, pressing down on her like an invisible weight. Then she felt it. A touch. Gentle, almost intimate. Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't afraid, not yet. Instead, a strange warmth spread through her like a whisper against her skin. It was as if something was hovering over her, watching, waiting. She wanted to move, to sit up, to turn her head and see who or what was there. But she couldn't. Then it happened. A force pressed against her, soft yet undeniable. A presence wrapping around her, moving closer, as if whispering silent words she couldn't hear. It wasn't violent. It wasn't menacing. It felt affectionate, like an unseen lover from another world. She lay frozen, trapped in this surreal moment, torn between terror and an unexplainable sense of peace. The presence lingered, then slowly, gently began to fade. The air grew lighter, the weight lifted, and suddenly she could move again. Lucy shot up, her breath ragged, her skin tingling. The room was empty, silent. But she knew what had just happened wasn't a dream. It wasn't her imagination. She had felt it. Someone had been there. Was it a spirit? A lost soul reaching out from beyond? Or something far stranger, something she couldn't even begin to understand? She never saw it again, never felt its presence return. But that night remained with her, burned into her memory like a ghostly fingerprint. Lucy Liu never believed in ghosts until one reached out and touched her.
If these stories made your spine tingle, don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales, or check out our next video if you're brave enough.